Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Gary Heil, and he is so appropriate for the times that we are living in. He's an internationally acclaimed expert in the field of leadership, management, and organizational culture. His work has helped some of the most prominent leaders and companies in the world, including former presidents of the United States, Fortune 10 companies, and professional sports coaches become more innovative and culturally vital. He shares his wisdom in the new book, Choose Love, Not Fear: How the Best Leaders Build Cultures of Engagement and Innovation That Unleash Human Potential. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Thank
And
you for having me.
my first question has to do with this horrible world we're living in right now with the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter and the presidential election coming in. So, how do you create this compelling cause and a shared purpose that brings people together and inspires them to tackle the thorniest of challenges when we are going through all of these things and one seems to feed off of the other?
Sure do, don't they? And I think it's always a tough issue about creating a cause. But I think part of our challenge as leaders is that we misunderstand our role a little bit. I think that leaders are more in the opportunity business, and that leaders' jobs are to provide an opportunity for people to find meaning in what they do. And with all the things going on in the world, it's certainly more difficult, but it doesn't change our challenge. We can't really inspire people. We can't really motivate people, I don't think. We don't have the power. I think what we do most of the time is create such a compelling opportunity that people want to sign up and be part of our cause. So our job is to describe a cause that's so interesting that people can't wait to sign up.
Well, that's true. I've always said you can't motivate anybody. They've got to motivate themselves. You can provide a motivational environment, but that's about it. So I think this is so important, this next question: why leaders must reimagine and reinvent rote, tired roles of what they're doing to bring meaning and to everybody's work life, because nobody is working the way they used to. I mean, there's talk now, well, why do we really need to come back into the office? And there's talk in the school environment of, yeah, everything's going to be hybrid from now on. And, there's just so much happening that is changing for everyone in their work life. And there's a lot of jobs that aren't coming back. So, where can a leader reimagine and reinvent?
I think I think the new normal that everybody talks about is a lot more new and a lot less normal. And I think it's going to challenge all leaders. But inflection points like this and change create opportunities. And I think it's going to stretch the way leaders have to think. Because when you're in the same office all the time or you're around each other all the time, I think you can get into habits and into cultures which make you very comfortable in the way things are. And I think this discomfort that we're feeling being different today might just push us outside our comfort zone far enough that we can imagine a more effective future. You know, Gail, that one of the things that's really interesting to me, I went into a company not long ago and I asked 65 leaders what they wanted their group to be like in 18 months. And not a single one of the 65 could give me a compelling reason to be different today in order to be a lot different in 18 months. The default position was like, I want you to sacrifice, work hard, be different. And I'm not sure we're exactly where we're going, but it turns out that the default position is we're going to be a lot like we are today, only 10% better. And who turns their life upside down for that? So I think leaders are going to be challenged to be far more articulate about what they're trying to accomplish.
I think so too. Now, I don't work with the level of businesses that you do. I work with a lot of small and medium sized businesses, but I'm doing a program next month. They've asked me to talk about where is business going from here on? Because they know that I study a lot of futurists and so forth. But, it's a hard call because I'm not sure people are even going to want to go back to an office life. If schools go back, then they don't have the challenge of working with kids at home at the same time. But if school does go back, and if they have the opportunity to be in their home environment, many of them are not going to want to go back to work. And I think in order to really get people on this train to where business is going and how robotics and AI and all of that is going to influence them, is going to really take some challenges. So how you call them weird ideas, how do you embrace the weird ideas that solve problems and propel the ingenuity that our future requires?
I think there's no easy answer, is there? I mean, I think if we had a crystal ball, it would be easier. But I think that we're going to have to imagine how our customers are going to experience the world differently. Will we ever look at movie houses the same once we've streamed everything that we're streaming today? Will we shake hands in the same way? I think things are going to change pretty dramatically. And if we put ourselves in the shoes of our customers and start to see how their lives are different, we're going to see opportunities and we're going to see challenges. And I think that living in the shoes of our customer and letting the outside world push us in a direction is a good first start.
Yeah, I think they're already talking about how the fist bump and the elbow bump are going to be the way of life instead of shaking hands. And really, hugging. Hugging is very controversial in corporate America anyway, but there are huggers who are leaders and there are huggers who are workers, and it's going to change how we approach everything. So you say that leaders need to engage emotionally, leading with warmth and vulnerability before competence. I have to say that many of the leaders that I have experienced are not necessarily warm, nor are they vulnerable. So, where does all of this come together?
I think that's a great question. We didn't originally set out to write a book called Choose Love, Not Fear. We came at it from a different point of view, small business, large business, classrooms, it doesn't really matter. We were out looking for leaders in every kind of event, from the classroom to the boardroom. And our position was 15 years ago when we started thinking about it, was that leaders talked a better game than they played. Didn't matter their personality, didn't matter where they worked or what they did, but they were better at talking about leading than they were leading. And we wanted to figure out why it was so hard to take their words and put them into action. And when we started doing these 700 interviews in this study, we found a lot of things that we should have expected. But the one thing we didn't expect at all, and we found, where there were these few exemplary leaders, these few leaders who just accomplished more in terms of winning, whether it be earnings or whether it be winning football games or teaching kids better, but also created an environment where people reach closer to their potential. And when you were in the presence of those teams, what we realized is that the relationship that the leader had with the group and the group had with each other were fundamentally different. And it was about 25 years ago that a guy named Jan Carlson, who wrote a book called Moments of
Oh, I
Truth.
remember that. Yes, yes.
And he was a mentor of mine. And he used to tell me that the first choice every leader needs to make is to choose love or to choose fear. You can't do both at the same time. And I thought I got it back then, but I don't think I really did. And then I met Dabo Sweeney, this football coach up at Clemson. And he's running around going, "We're going to win because we love each other." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And, and then I went out and saw a football coach in Concord, California in high school who hadn't lost a game in 12 years. And he kept saying that the secret is the way we relate to each other. And then I was walking down the street with a really interesting leader named Alan Mullally.
Oh, I met Alan.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's a former CEO at Ford, right?
right. And before that, president of Boeing's commercial aircraft.
Right.
And he was telling me, Gary, the first thing leaders need to do is they need to love them up before they coach them up. And I'm going, okay, this is too much. I've got these football coaches and I've got these corporate leaders and I've got these guys running airlines. And when I find an exemplary team that's just knocking it out of the park, they relate to each other fundamentally differently. They realize the organization is human, and the relationships they have on the team are deeper. They're far more intimate in a psychological way. They're safer, and they allow people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And when you talk to people about it on the team, they talk about their culture as a competitive advantage. And it was so different, Dr. Gayle, was so different in those teams that we felt like we had no choice but to name the book that, because so many times we look at earnings and profits and winning games and test scores in schools, and we forget that all influence is relational.
That is so true. And it's interesting. in fact, I even have a picture with Alan because he was doing an event and I was there. But, you know, it definitely comes from the top. It definitely comes from the top. And there's a lot of people who are from the ground up who are feeling these things and loving these things and caring for each other. But if it doesn't come from the top, it stops. So how do you input this feeling into the leaders? You say that there are three critical questions that leaders have to answer today to prepare for the new normal. And I wonder if there is a new normal or if things are going to be crazy from this point on, that we're thinking is going to happen tomorrow, which we don't even know when that will occur, Gary. I mean, every time we think things are going back, then they stop again. I know I'm in Miami, and as of today, the big news coverage was, yeah, we're closing places down again. Everybody had better wear masks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what are these critical questions?
Well, I think there are a number of questions. The questions, that I think that we start with, leaders in general, the study of leadership has been far too leader-centric. We want to know about characteristics of leaders, and really the relationship with a leader and their effectiveness is the relationship between the leader characteristics, the people, followers, call them that, and the social milieu, the culture in which you live. We focus so much on the leader, we've sometimes excluded really understanding the follower's reaction and the culture in which, the context in which they do it. And I think if you look at the follower, I mean, they always ask the same question. You say, follow me implicitly, and they go, where are we going? And why are we going there? And if we can't answer those questions to begin with, we've got no shot of getting off the ground. And I think that the one question that leaders have to be able to answer is where are we going and why are we going there? We have to be able to answer those and in order to get people to sacrifice to move with us. And it is a sacrifice to give up their time and their energy and engage in what we're asking them to do. And about the changes, I think that somehow or another, we have to imagine a future that's fundamentally different. Nobody turns their life upside down to be average, and nobody turns their life upside down and sacrifices for something that they can't imagine or can't see or don't think is possible. So I think leaders are really going to have to spend more time thinking about those issues today, given the changing environment we're in and how much our lives are turned upside down.
I ran a small company. I had 7 offices. I had 350 people. So it wasn't a big business, but it was big for me. And I can't imagine not knowing where I was going or why we were going to get there. And how can a leader get to be a leader if they can't answer those questions?
I think it's a great question, but we imbue leadership by position too often, right? And so there are a lot of people when you ask them, so how do you want to be different than you are today in a year or 2 years? And just listen to what they tell you and ask you if it's a compelling enough reason or the difference is big enough that you're willing to sacrifice today for that tomorrow. Because in the absence of something to sacrifice for, self-interest is all there is. And I think Bill Campbell, the former CEO of Intuit, used to say that, the business can give you a position. The people that work for you tell you whether you're a leader or not. So I think we sometimes confuse real leadership with the position where we're supposed to lead.
Well, I agree with you there. I think there are plenty of people, mid-level and even entry, who are terrific leaders in their own way of what they do, which brings me to the people who are those frontline people, the first responders, the retail workers, the delivery drivers. You say that COVID-19 has galvanized them into unsung heroes, which they are. I mean, you see them featured on various TV programs and news programs every day. So how, I mean, it's pushed, you say it pushed leaders to actually lead, but I'm sure some of them are not going to that high level that they should. So what happens in those particular situations?
Well, I think that crisis does amazing things for all of us to galvanize our focus because it makes the end result we're trying to do so clear. And when it's emotionally connective, it's when it's emotionally compelling that this crisis gets to our heart as well as our head. I think we act differently. I have seen it for years. I spent a long time in the Coast Guard where I would see in a normal day-to-day operation where things were pretty normal and could be bureaucratic. But if you saw the motor surf boats off the Columbia Bar in Oregon, or watched a Coast Guard helicopter pilot in the old days doing search and rescue off the coast of California, and you see them risking their lives every day, and you see teams acting in exemplary ways, they're amazing. Or gas and electric utility people in storms hanging off of telephone poles. And during those times, their safety records actually get better, but they do extraordinary things to keep people in power. And the first responders today, or the people serving us when we go to the store in the middle of COVID, I think it focuses our efforts and the best of human beings comes out. Douglas McGregor said years ago that one of the sad parts about most organizations a half a century ago is that we underestimate the potential of ordinary human beings to do extraordinary things. I think he was right then. I think he'd be right now. In the absence of a crisis, I don't think we expect as much from each other as we have to give in terms of our contribution to society.
Well, you also say that it's brought out the best in us. And there's a new 10-year study that reveals how to keep it going with some expert tips. Do you have any of those?
I I think if we look at the way we act in these emergencies and our focus in emergencies, and we say, if the emergency went away, what would it take for people to be as emotionally connected to a cause, to something worthy of their sacrifice? Because we're in the opportunity business, and it's the leader's job to create an opportunity where people can find meaning in their lives. I mean, in your work, and when I look at your work, it's so compelling around the idea of when we feel like we're fully engaged and we feel like we're being fulfilled, it doesn't feel like burnout as much. It doesn't feel the same level of stress, although there's stress everywhere, when in fact we think we're accomplishing something of great import. But if we have a job where we have a bad boss or we're not doing anything of meaning, our whole life changes. So I think the tip for me is to look at ourselves and the way we act in these kinds of circumstances and ask ourselves why we don't act that way when the crisis is not there.
Well, you're right, because in my work with these companies, first of all, I have found primarily that the problems come from the top. They really don't come from the working force. It comes from the top. And I've been a consultant to many of these organizations, and I've been let go as a consultant, not to be brought back because it's my job to tell them that they are the issue and they don't want to hear that. So, I've politely gone in and not so politely gone out. But I can also tell you that most people will tell you, I don't know, maybe you found that out in your interviews, that they leave a job not because they don't like the job, but because they don't like their boss. And so I think that's just such a sad situation because, you know, you're depending on your work to feed your family or to keep your basic needs met. And yet you'll leave because of a bad boss. I think that's just really sad.
Oh, it is sad, isn't it? And it's been universally true for the 3 decades I've been studying this stuff, which is we come to a company hoping to make a difference, right? As Maslow said, we come wanting to love our boss and wanting to love the job, but we leave because the supervision, the bad boss, the frustrating nature of the way we're treated. And it's an indictment. And I don't know what you found because you've done a lot of this work, but I found that a lot of leadership is not very good nor very accountable at times.
Ah, my favorite word, accountability. That's my favorite word because I find a lot of people talk a great game, but they aren't necessarily accountable. And I've been a member of many groups where we have to have accountability partners, and it's amazing to me. And I have to say, I'm partially guilty of this as well. The accountability partner lasts for 30 days or 60 days, but by 90 days, it's over. And so I think accountability is, I think that's a major issue. And that's, I think, one of the most important things that a young person can learn accountability. That's how they progress. And I think it's sad that there is very little accountability in so many things that are going on today. Well, we only have, Gary, about 5 minutes left, or maybe even less than that. So I want to make sure we've gotten everything out that you want our audience to listen to. What else can you tell them that's important? How can they find you? Where can your book be published, found? Is it on your website? Is it at Amazon? Tell us a little bit about how people can reach you.
Well, GaryHeil.com. You can reach me there at the Washington Speakers Bureau.
And
And
that's basically Heil. You should know it's Hale, Heil, not Hale. Heil. Gary with one R, Gary. Okay.
right, and I think the book's on Amazon. As far as is to leave with one thing, I think my value system parallels yours quite a bit in terms of the message leaders should be thinking about it. Pam Landworth um, in outside Orlando runs a charity called Give Kids the World.
Oh, I
And
know that. Yes. I was up there. I donated some things to them. It's a wonderful, wonderful program.
yeah, and she was my client at Disney and one of my best friends in the world. And I'm in awe of her all the time and what she does and how much money she's raised. She has to raise 70 million a year just to break even to take 6,000 families through the village every year. She's an amazing leader. But she has one sign in her office, just one sign. And she looks at it every day. And I think about her and her sign often. It's a sign that says it's not about me. And I do believe it's one of the most interesting things to put in our offices, which is leadership is not about you. It's about those that have entrusted you to lead. Because leadership is not a reflection of some styles or things you do. It's a reflection of who you are. It's partial of you. And in good times and in tough times, you'll reflect that. And her thing is that it's not about me, it's about the kids. It's about the families that come to the village. It's about her constituency and her customers and her 2,000 volunteer hours she gets a week. And sometimes as leaders, we need to check at the door and remember that it's not about us, it's about the relationships we choose to create and our ability to influence through those relationships. And I think, especially with young leaders these days, I think we can be so much about our journey through this stuff that we forget that what we really do is we really are about engaging with others so that ordinary people, building a culture so that ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
Yeah, the ego's a funny thing, Gary, isn't it? I mean, we always think of taking care of ourselves first, which is important. But sometimes you have to park your ego at the door and realize what you're contributing to other people. Well, folks, again, if you want to find out more about Gary, you can go to his website, which is Gary Heil, and that's Heil.com. And if you are interested in his book, you can get it at Amazon, which is How to Choose Love, Not Fear. Choose Love, Not Fear. How the Best Leaders Build Cultures of Engagement and Innovation that Unleash Human Potential. Gary, it has been an absolute delight. And, I just hope people pay attention to your message and that you get it out to more and more people, because love is what it's all about. And we do lead from the top. So thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle. I'm a fan. Good luck down there. Stay safe.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you